Good morning, everyone. Call House Judiciary to order this morning. Debbie, you want to call the roll?
Representative Chestick,
Here.
Representative Crago, Representative Haraldson, Representative Jennings, Representative Nemec, Representative Oakley, Representative Provenza,
Excused.
Representative Rodriguez-Williams.
Here.
And Chairman Washut.
Here. Just for the record, Representative Provenza is presenting a bill in another committee this morning and won't be with us. So today in House Judiciary, we have two joint judiciary bills. Senate File 32 will be the one that we begin with. I just want to have a few cautionary remarks at the outset. What we're looking for here is testimony that is specific to the bill. We know and recognize that there's a broader issue kind of behind the scenes of this bill, but the testimony today needs to be specific to Senate File 32, okay? And if you start wandering off onto broader topics, I'll probably gavel you down and bring that to an end. We will have limited time, just like everything else in the budget session. We are always under a time crunch. We have two bills to conclude this morning and 2 hours in which to get them done. So we will begin our testimony with a testimony from legislators, and then we will go to agency personnel, and then we'll go to the general public, okay? And I plan on giving, as I had done with other more controversial bills have come before us, I give 20 minutes of testimony for those who are opposed and 20 minutes of testimony for those who are in favor of the bill. That's not 20 minutes each, it's 20 minutes total for those opposed and 20 minutes for those in favor, okay? And so you might think about who among you has the most poignant testimony relative to Senate File 32 and make sure those folks get to talk first. If one person talks for 10 minutes, that means everybody else has a little less time. So stay on point, tell us what we need to know, and we'll make good decisions. We also insist upon decorum in our committee. Everyone is expected to be polite and courteous to one another, no outbursts, no yelling, and cease talking when the chair tells you to cease talking. All conversation comes through the chair. So even if you're asked a question by one of the other committee members, your first response is to the chair and then to the question that was asked. Hope we're all, everybody clear on that. So we begin Senate File 32. Everybody, I think, remembers this bill from the interim. What we're looking at here are issues associated with Delta 8 products and some of the complications that arose from the legalization of hemp in Wyoming. And before us is that product that we worked on through the interim and developed to try and address some of these concerns. Anybody want to add anything to that description of what we're about today? Okay. So are there any legislators in the room that wish to testify about Senate File 32? Any legislators? None? Very good. Any agency personnel on Senate File 32? Good morning. Please state your name for the record.
Wyoming State Crime Lab. It is. I'll scooch it forward a little. Good morning. My name is Sarah Barrett. I work with Division of Criminal Investigation with the State Crime Lab.
Ms. Barrett, I'm assuming that you're here to answer any questions relative to the technical aspects of this bill. Do you have anything more generally to add to your presentation this morning?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I am in general here to answer any questions you have, but just as a reminder, this topic was brought up in interim. The issue with Delta 8 THC is there is no scientific test to tell where the Delta-8 came from. So there is a tiny bit naturally occurring in the hemp plant. And then we believe it's generally accepted in both the forensic chemistry community as well as in the world of CBD that most of the Delta-8 products out there are synthetically converted from CBD or the hemp plant. And so the issue really started with, is the Delta-8 THC synthetic or naturally occurring? And so that's, I think, what is addressed in this bill is how do we make the law a little bit clearer than what it is currently.
Very good, helpful, thank you. Questions, Representative Jennings?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here this morning. So my concern with this, I think I'm probably in favor of this, but I have concerns. Page 1, under process. It talks about no synthetic substance that contains, and then it goes into the hemp is 0.3 THC. Take an opioid, take a brownie or something of that nature. So 0.3 THC off of the hemp or something of that nature, the cannabis. But could you take something like, because 0.3 would be a lot from, say, an opioid, and that would be a naturally occurring substance. Could you use this statute then to somehow go in there, say, to a brownie or a gummy bear and have it under the 0.3, but then, I mean, that's a lot of some of the other drugs, fentanyl or something else, that would be a lot. So if you could reassure me that there's not an end game for them to be able to use a naturally occurring substance in there.
Ms. Barrett?
Chairman Washit, Representative Jennings, I don't believe that that would apply to other naturally occurring drugs out there. This is specific to THC, and then it defines what THC is, and there are some changes to that are in this bill. So on page 3, line 2 is where it begins with the definition of THC, and then line 6 through 14 have been added. So I don't think that other types of non-cannabinoids would be included with the changes that are in this bill.
Further questions? Representative Harrelson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Barrett, thank you so much for being here today. Obviously, anytime we touch any of these bills, everything gets exciting. And so with that, I kind of want to just get a 30,000 real quick. So from our interim conversation, what I viewed this as is an opportunity for us to address simply this concept of a synthetic Delta-8, predominantly in our schools is where we've been having an issue. So the question that I have is, with us saying that 0.3%, what we're doing is we're protecting our hemp industry, saying we're not going to regulate the hemp industry. You can continue to grow, continue to do what you do. But what we are doing is we're going to create an opportunity for us to address Delta-8 specifically and what that is bringing in. Am I correct in that assumption and what I'm viewing there?
Ms. Barrett?
Chairman Washit, Representative Harrelson, I believe that that is correct with what is in this bill.
Further questions? Stay close. I know how these conversations sometimes go.
I will be right back there. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Any other agency personnel? Good morning. State your name for the record and tell us what we need to
Slade
know.
Franklin, Technical Services Manager with Wyoming Department of Agriculture. We manage the hemp program. For the growers, I don't have any planned testimony for you in your committee today, but I certainly wanted to make myself available to answer any questions that you may have on how this would impact our program.
Thank you. State your last name again. And
Franklin?
Franklin, Mr. Franklin, thank you very much for being here today. Representative Harrelson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Can I just, I won't repeat the question because you just heard it, but can you answer that question I just asked about what does this do to the hemp growing industry and what are we, I mean, would this be something that would hamper these growers in this industry?
Mr. Franklin.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Representative Harrelson, from our review of the bill, and what we regulate is the raw hemp product from the grower to the processing. We do have record-keeping requirements within our rules for processing. At this point, though, we don't see how this is going to change our program significantly in any way.
Further questions? So you don't see this as any impediment for the hemp growers out there in Wyoming?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, again, we'll still test at that 0.3% THC and follow the processing to the processors. And to be clear, we do not do regulation on the sale of the products in the sale industry. It's just simply that grower to the processing facility where our work ends.
Further questions? Thank you for being here. You might stay close just in case. Thank you. Any other state agency people on Zoom? Okay. All right, so we're going to open it up for 20 minutes of testimony. We'll see if we get 20 minutes of testimony in favor of Senate File 32. Anyone in the room wishing to testify in favor of Senate File 32? Please come forward. Anyone else wish to testify in favor? Please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, Roy Eckert, Executive Officer for the Wyoming Association of Sheriffs and Chiefs of Police. It's hard to get used to saying instead of Chief of Police, but I retired in December. The sheriffs and chiefs have been involved with this throughout the process. Need to get a little closer. The sheriff and chiefs have been involved with this throughout the process. We still support this bill. Ultimately, it's about what's best for our communities. As was mentioned by the representative in our schools, being in prevention in Park County, I know we've seen numerous emergency room visits in both Cody and Powell due to kids' exposure to the Delta 8.
Questions? Thank you. Anyone else wishing to testify in favor? Senate File 32. Anyone online wishing to testify in favor of Senate File 32? No. All right, so we'll begin Senate File 32, those in opposition. Those in opposition. Since we had so little testimony in favor, we'll go 30 minutes for those opposed, so we get plenty of opportunity for the public. So anyone wishing to testify in opposition to Senate File 32, please come forward. Good morning. Please state your name for the record.
Chance Coppinger.
Mr. Carpenter, go ahead.
So in defense of Delta 8, Delta 8 is a product in Wyoming that helps many like veterans with PTSD and people with cancer that treatment options need to work with like their appetite and everything. And neither in Wyoming have the option for medical marijuana at this point, which is very beneficial to those people. This is one of the only options they have in this state. So if that was taken away, it would be very negative for those people. Also, if it's made illegal in Wyoming, it's still legal to order online, which, because it's federally legal, they can still order it online, can still get it here, pretty easy. And it would only be impacting the businesses in the state that do sell it and, make a living off of it. And then, as with any drug that's made illegal before, people always find a way around the system and to get it anyways. So if it was made illegal, it would just have a rise and another legal high would take its place, or the black market would rise to, meet the demands of the people who needed it in the first place and can't get it anymore. That is about it, but that's.
Thank you. Questions? Representative Oakley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just was trying to Google something real quick, but I'm interested in something that you said. You were talking about medical marijuana not being legal here, which is true because it's still listed as a Schedule I drug federally. And then you said, since it's legal, since you said Delta 8 is legal federally,
Yeah.
is that,
Yeah,
I'm trying to,
there's, oh, sorry.
if you,
Through the-
I'm sorry, but if you can elaborate on that.
So
To
there's,
the- Sir, to the chairman,
Oh.
then to the,
okay, Chairman, Representative Oakley. So there's many websites online that like just freely advertise Delta 8 all over the internet and not specifically where you can get it. So like anyone in any state can just order it. And so if you made it specifically illegal here, they'd still be able to get it. You would just really be hurting small businesses in town and the community itself who could get it a little easier. They'll still be able to get it just online, but they'll just be hurting the small businesses who make their living off of it. And also just another point, Delta 8, from like experience and stuff, like I said, really helps like vets and people with like cancer and stuff, but it's also not nearly as strong as like marijuana. So it gives people an option as well that don't want like the crazy levels of THC and stuff that come with like your normal marijuana nowadays. And it gives them a lighter option to take where you still get the benefits, but without like, so much of the, crazy effects you would get from the full-on medical marijuana and stuff. Thank
so
you.
when someone purchases this product, how do they know what's in it? That's been one of my big concerns about a lot of these products is the regulatory structure just isn't too robust.
Yeah.
And so the consumer doesn't always know exactly what they're getting, right?
Thank you, Chairman. As we saw with the vape issue, like the nicotine vape issue back in the day, there are some like companies that have a better regulatory process than others. Some of the higher up companies do a lot better at checking their product and stuff. But if you go through like a third tier company that's not as like checked and like managed and stuff, it can be a little more like indiscreet with like its processes and stuff. But a lot of the bigger companies, like the more like robust ones and stuff, are pretty good usually about listing how they're making their product and pretty upfront usually about what they're putting into it and how they're doing their process and stuff.
Thank you. Good to know.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Representative Jennings.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here this morning. I get the concept of freedom and for the companies, and absolutely, and even agree with a lot of that concept. So help me out here, because what does your industry, what is the people that believe in this level of easy access, what's your solution to what we're grappling with, that this is being used by kids and a lot, and becoming a problem? What's your solution to that side of this issue?
To the chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Representative Jennings. So as far as that goes, I'd say rather than making it like fully illegal and stuff, maybe some more like checks and balances to like, put in place to stop it as from easily as getting to the youth and everything might help. But as I said before, like whether they have like an older brother or like their parents getting it for them, people will always like if people want to do something, they're always going to find a way around the system put in place to do it. So if we had more like, checks and balances put in place to try and stop that from happening as easily, it might help a little bit with that issue. But, kids will be kids. So.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So what would that look like? What kind of enforcement mechanism? What are you talking about here to the checks and balances? What would that look like in real life?
To the chairman.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Representative Jennings. So as far as that goes, more like better system of like, making sure everybody is of age, like maybe raise the age that it's supposed to be at, like check that and stuff. And then, just I guess within the school systems have, the officers and stuff kind of keep track of that a little better. Like most, systems of justice, the laws can be put in place, but it's the enforcement of the laws is, when they really start taking effect. So if the police and stuff aren't able to, actually enforce the laws or put make it like I guess like a higher risk reward thing, or like if you're caught with like Delta 8 and stuff, maybe there's like a fine or something. I'm not quite sure on that point.
Okay. Sometimes the first witness gets lots of questions, so
Yeah, I'm
apologize
seeing
for that. But thank you very much for being here this morning. Appreciate
Thank
your
you for
testimony.
having me.
All right. Anyone else in the room wishing to testify in opposition? Senate File 32. Please come forward. Good morning. Thanks for being here.
Good morning.
State your name for the record and
Tierney Pfeiffer.
get real close to the microphone for us.
Tierney Pfeiffer.
Thank you. Go ahead and tell us what you'd like us to hear.
Good morning, Chairman Washit. I am a sales associate. I sell Delta 8 to the public. I have received the opportunity to hear testimonials from users, consumers of Delta 8. There's several women who have reproductive issues that like to use Delta 8 instead of driving down to Colorado to get legal marijuana to help treat them with their pain. There are several ways to find out what the contents of the product are. Many products contain QR codes, and if you scan the QR code on the back of the product, it will be on the box itself that the product is in, and then some of the products, especially like disposable vapes, they will have a QR code on the vape itself, and it will tell you, if you scan the QR code, it will tell you what the contents of by the website. The websites, even when we get boxes of it in from other states, it will tell you exactly what's in there, and it'll give you like a general reading on a pamphlet that comes inside the box when we receive it. There's several veterans that also come in and use it. They come back, they frequent for it. I've actually had the opportunity to have a lengthy conversation with a gentleman who is from Longmont, Colorado, but he also is a veteran, and he cannot, he said that if he goes to a dispensary in Colorado and purchases legal marijuana, that the terpene levels inside the legal marijuana are too high for him, and they increase levels of anxiety for him, and they increase levels of paranoia for him, and it gets him too high. So he would drive from Longmont to Cheyenne, come to where I work, and purchase Delta 8 because it is more moderate, and it will help him kind of, have an even point of relaxation where he doesn't, he can function throughout the day where he feels like he's a little, happier or chipper, or, he's not wanting to sit in his living room with his blinds closed. And so there's also a grandmother who comes into our store, and her grandson, who is of the legal age, but she is his legal guardian because he's been in and out of trouble. Both of his parents died from drug overdose. Sorry. His grandmother comes in and purchases it for him because the state of Colorado has him on pharmaceutical drugs that doesn't help him at all. So his grandmother comes in and purchases Delta 8 for him so he can sleep and so he doesn't have night terrors. I'm a mother myself. I have a 14-year-old daughter. She talks to me about things that come in and out of the schools here in this town. Delta 8 is not a concern in her school. And like the gentleman before me had mentioned, is that there are parents that need to essentially, I guess you could say, be better regulated themselves, because these kids are going to have access to it if they're 16, if they're 18, and if their parents are coming in and buying it for them. Nobody can control that. You have a legal adult who's doing it. It's not any different than a parent going down to Colorado and purchasing legal marijuana. It's not any different than a parent going and buying alcohol for their 15-year-old kid. You know, so yeah, there are checks and balances that could be put into place, but you know, I can't control it any more than you can control it, but the information about Delta 8 is out there, and and how good it is, you know, the benefits to it, and not all of it is just created to get you stoned. There are other levels of, like, there are other things of Delta 8 that also contain CBD that help with pain.
Thank you. You did very well.
Thank
And
you.
I know it's not easy to come in front of a big group like this on live broadcast and testify. You did great. I do have one question for you, though. It sounds like your shop sells this product as a treatment for these conditions. Is that right?
It's not necessarily as a treatment. When we first started carrying it was when I was, you know, I was a new employee there. And it was something that, you know, got brought into the shop because we had representatives for these companies that were calling us and asking us, you know, what do you guys know about this? And then so we had also, you know, taken the time to do our own research and ask them questions. Yes, in a sense, it could be absolutely used as treatment for anxiety. You know, people aren't smoking Delta 8 and going out and doing crazy things. They just want to go home after a long night's of work, take a little bit of edge off, and it's, in my opinion, it's safer than alcohol.
Representative Rodriguez-Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Pfeiffer, thank you for being here today. In your role as a sales associate at the shop, I'm just curious, to your knowledge, has your shop ever received a recall on a product? You mentioned that there were QR codes that are on the products.
No, ma'am, we have not.
Through the chair, please.
Oh, sorry, Chairman Washut, Representative Rodriguez. We have not received any recalls on any of our product. There was a period of time where there was a company that said that they had Delta 9 THC. And the owner of the business that I work for was very adamant about telling that company, if you continue to send me products that have Delta 9 THC in it, I will no longer be carrying your product. So she was very, you know, adamant and stood her ground on making sure that we weren't receiving anything that would be it would have any negative recourse.
Very good. Further questions? Thank you again. Appreciate your
Chairman
testimony.
Washut. Thank you.
Anyone else in the room wishing to testify on Senate File 32? No one else in the room? Shall we go to Zoom? Maybe Mr. Garrett? Bring in Mr. Garrett. Can you hear me, Mr. Garrett? Yeah. Let's start with Mr. Garrett if he's out there. Okay, Mr. Harden is listed on my sheet for House Bill 30. So I'm not inclined to go to Mr. Harden because that's not the bill we're dealing with here. So let's just start at the top. Mr. Sheffield, is he there? Yes. Bring Mr. Sheffield in. Mr. Sheffield, can you hear me?
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr.
Hello.
Sheffield. This is Mr. Sheffield. Please state your name for the record. And we only have a few minutes, so be spot on point on Senate File 32.
Thank you, Chairman Washut. Walter Sheffield. I'm calling basically the main concerns I've heard so far on the testimony and from our other officials is that this product is being accessed by children. So I wholeheartedly agree that this is an adult use product, similar to alcohol, tobacco, and other adult use products. However, the bill, as I see it right now, does not put any age limit there's no 21 and up. And I also don't see any licensing requirements for the retailers, which I think those would be the first sets of checks and balances to help get the industry under control. All legal producers produce products that have QR codes and lab reports. And again, that's where a regulatory agency can verify that with a licensing of these retailers. At the federal level, this product is clearly legal. The Ninth Circuit Court has ruled. They put injunctions on states that have blocked the sales of these products. So there's a lot of federal legislation that's in support of Delta 8 and in support of the hemp industry. As other speakers have talked about, the prohibition is simply going to drive this product and purchase online. Most online purchasers, there's a button. Am I 21? Yes or no, but there's no real age verification. So it is important to try to keep customers from purchasing from our local stores where they can, buy products that they're interested in. If Wyoming starts changing the hemp bill at the state level from the hemp bill at the federal level, I feel that it may impair the value of Wyoming hemp products and Wyoming hemp businesses because we're going to have a patchwork of regulations. Some states allow Delta 8, some states don't. At the federal level, it's 0.3% Delta 9 THC on a dry weight basis. By maintaining that universal standard, it keeps Wyoming businesses compliant at the federal level, and everyone has the most potential for sale, resale, and import and transit of products. Again, like the Farm Bill is going to be updated in 2024. At that time is a great time for us to look at what changes need to be made. But right now, the best I can tell in Wyoming legislation, like most stores are voluntarily enforcing an age limit, but there's no law. There's no licensing of these stores. So rather than outlawing an entire business for public safety, I think it makes more sense to look at some common sense regulations and common sense age limits and common sense licensing of outlets where these products are sold, just like we do with alcohol, just like we do with tobacco, and just like we do with every other adult use product. I mean, you go to Walmart to buy a thing of spray paint, they ask you for an ID. You need to verify that that's happening if you're buying Delta 8. Be happy to address any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Sheffield. Where do you live, sir?
I live in Dayton, Wyoming.
Thank you very much. Questions for Mr. Sheffield? Representative Justin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Sheffield, I get your concern about the fact there's no age limits in this bill. And this is a very complicated area and one I'm not very up on, and I'm not a user of these products, and I don't really understand them very well, but I do understand the problem of having children access these products. So is there something, some place in this bill or some amendment to this bill that you would recommend that would solve the problem of allow us to keep these products out of the hands of children while still allowing adult use?
Mr. Sheffield.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Cheston. Similar states have regulations. I would be happy to work with you. I'd be happy to reach out and gather some more language. But I mean, first and foremost, it's Wyoming needs to determine whether it's your Department of Food Safety, like who regulates a 7-Eleven, who regulates a smoke shop, which Department of Professional Regulation in Wyoming regulates that. Implement a licensing procedure, implement a nominal licensing fee, and implement an age verification. Like right now, there is no law in Wyoming that says you have to be 21 to purchase this product. So if a retailer would make a sale to a 14-year-old, they are complying with Wyoming law. Federal law, unfortunately, did not put an age limit on these products at the time that the Farm Bill was made. It was oversight at the federal level, and we've got additional oversight at the state level. And I think this bill gives us the opportunity, if we can circle back and start with a clean slate, understand that the Farm Bill at the federal level is what we have to work with. That regulatory bill sets standards on what hemp products are, what derivatives from hemp products are allowed, what products are not allowed, and simply put a regulatory mechanism in place, because all of the regulation, everything I've talked to with Mike Lansing, all of the regulations in Wyoming only address farming. There is nothing in Wyoming statute that addresses manufacture, sale, importation, exportation of finished good products. So we have the opportunity to do this and do it right. But I don't know if I think it would be a clean sheet amendment to simply work with what state agency would be the appropriate regulator, find those licensing fees, and make sure that we solidify the age requirement and the signage requirement. I mean, you can't take your child into the liquor store. You shouldn't be taking your child into the hemp store.
Thank you. For further questions? Appreciate your testimony this morning, Mr. Sheffield. Is it snowing in
Thank you,
Dayton?
Mr. Chairman. It's cold, but no snow today. We had a lot of snow yesterday and Monday.
Very good. Thank you very much. Mr. Pyle, Julie Pyle, Miss Pyle. Bring Julie Pyle in, please.
Ms. Pyle, if you would turn on your camera and unmute.
Miss Pyle, you're on mute. There you are.
Hi.
Good morning. State your name for the record, and we have just a few minutes, so be spot on your testimony on Center File 32.
Well, my name is Julie Pyle. I'm actually a manager at Sheridan Platt Hemp Company. So I also too work in one of the hemp shops. I came here from Casper's Hemp Shop to open up Sheridan's. I was born here, raised in Casper, came back here, and I feel that the level of accepting was crazy to me, just because usually Sheridan is more so of a place where you wouldn't think hemp is needed, but how many people I've helped who needed help just to sleep, just with non-psychoactive cannabinoids, with like CBN, which is derived from the hemp plant, they will no longer have use to that just because it's a derivative. And in that bill, it says any isomers, salts, acetates, anything that's derived from the hemp plant can't be used. So I feel like just the 650 customers that have walked into my store have had benefits from it. The regulations I do agree with, just because we did have to trespass someone who was 18 from our store because we worked with law enforcement to find out he was selling to the minors at school, which we do not stand for. We do not want our product in the hands of people who are not adults. And it is an adult use cannabinoid. It's an adult use plant. In the state of Wyoming too, they also have allowed parents to medicate their kids with CBD. So it's kind of hard to say that you can't, have a parent come in and buy something for their child just because that's just not regulated. And I don't think that we should take away from any parent to want to help medicate their child, especially if they already went to the doctor, they tried all the pills, they did everything like that, and it still didn't work. I don't think, kids shouldn't have CBD. I do believe the psychoactive compounds in hemp are what the kids should not be allowed to have until they are of legal age. And just this last year, Wyoming has changed the age back to 18 to purchase any hemp products. I feel like changing it back to 21 could help a little bit with how it's getting into the schools. But I help so many cancer patients daily, and I've had people come and cry because, this product's actually worked for them and nothing else has. In the past 30 years, they've been trying any pharmaceutical pills or anything. So taking away the hemp use in Wyoming would not benefit Wyoming at all. I think we just need to put a little bit more regulation into place and maybe even look on regulating medical marijuana just because the regulations are a lot more strict in regulating marijuana than they are hemp, just because there are delta-8 isomers, salts, acetates, and it's kind of hard to know what company is, being true to what they say on their COAs, on those QR codes. I for sure know that Platt Hemp Company, we third-party lab test all of our products. So we make sure, even if the company has done it, we make sure we know what's coming into our stores. We know, we go to the farms, we go to the plants, we make sure that there's no harsh chemicals, no bad extraction processes, nothing bad that can harm anyone in our products at Platt Hemp.
Thank you,
Chair.
Would you say that your products are organic?
I would not say super organic. There are still pesticides sprayed. All of our lab testing, however, it meets the requirements of any kind of lab testing that can be done through any kind of farming. So let's say you use crops to grow natural farm products like lettuce and everything like that. They're still sprayed with pesticides, and they're still allowed to be sold under that certain type of percentage of pesticides. So I feel like if we were to regulate hemp, we'd have to regulate everything that's sprayed in pesticides, anything that's made in a lab type situation, anything that's extracted from anything, like vanilla extract. It comes from the vanilla plant, but it's not naturally like that. You have to put it through a process to actually get that extract out.
Thank you. Representative Oakley, question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm interested, you said you actually go to the farm. So you are involved from the plant, the production, and then go into the lab, you actually create the synthetic delta-8?
We don't, no, we're not. I'm
Ms.
sorry.
Biles, to the chairman.
Yes, sorry, Ms. Chairman, Ms. Oakley. we were to, my boss actually likes to go, my owner, Samuel Watt, he likes to go to where we get our flour, and he wants to do deep diving research into any company we bring on, just because there are so many companies out there that are allowed to put whatever in their product, and we don't like to carry whatever in our product. We like to know what's in our product.
Thank you. Further questions? Very good. Thank you, Ms. Pyle, for sharing with us this morning. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Anybody else with their hand up?
Mr. Chairman, we have Juan Hernandez Noriega.
Yes, bring Mr. Hernandez Noriega in, please. Mr. Hernandez Noriega, are you there? Make sure you're not on mute. Mr. Hernandez Noriega, are you there? Not hearing anything. Anyone else with a hand up?
Mr. Chairman, we have Deborah McGalney.
Yes, bring Deborah in, please. Ms. McElhaney, are you there, please?
I
There
am.
you are. Good morning. State your name for the record. We only
I am
have about 5 minutes left, so please be spot on with your testimony on Senate File 32.
Thank you, Chairman Wassett. I am Deborah McElhaney. I'm from Upton, Wyoming. I am a 58-year-old woman with chronic pain that I've had for the last couple of decades due to a neurologic condition. And any person who suffers with chronic pain understands that through the daily activities of life, when you are affected that way, it causes anxiety. So I've also had anxiety for several years. These products that have been made available through legislation that allowed the state of Wyoming to have legal hemp products has created a pathway for me to use a product that is not a pharmaceutical opioid or barbiturate. And I have seen great success with my ailments and the problems that I have through these products. I know several other people that are my age, some older, some younger, who also use these products, and we have great success from them. I'm a law-abiding citizen, so I want to be able to continue to access these products that our legislation has created a pathway to for us to have them legally. And I'm really concerned about the fact that we may lose the legal aspect to purchasing these products. I am not in favor of that at all.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Anyone have questions? Ms. McElhaney. Thank you very much. Appreciate your testifying today.
Thank you, Chairman Wassett.
Anyone else? We got 3 minutes.
Gabe Knowlton will be joining the room.
Gabe Knowlton. I think we've already heard from Platt Hemp Company, but go ahead. Mr. Knowlton, are you there? Mr. Knowlton?
Can you hear me?
We can. State your name for the record. You have a couple minutes.
My name
Be
is
spot on.
Gabriel. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Wash it. My name is Gabriel Knowlton. I am an employee of Platt Hemp and a user of hemp products. As I speak for a huge portion of Wyoming residents who weren't able to be here today or make it, as well as a consumer myself through my severe scoliosis and anxiety issues. Sorry, this is pretty important to me. Passing SF0032 will only damage Wyoming and its people. The people rely on our products, which my company, Platt Hemp, like you heard today, full panel tests. Nothing goes on our shelves without it being fully tested. Our extraction process, we don't allow anything in our store that has anything like your common way in legal marijuana states that allow butane or propane. Anything we bring in is extracted with hydrogen or CO2. So it's cold pressed. There's no chemicals in there. A lot of the veterans rely on us. A large portion of our consumers and customers are over the age of 40. A lot of them over the age of 50. Time and time again, every day, I hear elderly seniors come in and talk about how this is the only thing that they have found to treat their chronic illnesses. I have witnessed veterans come in, and our store is the only place they'll come into because they're suffering from such bad PTSD. Luckily, we are an outlet for these people. We believe in a better future for our citizens, especially in Wyoming, being a veteran-owned company. There is a huge amount of people who rely on the products we provide to them. Platt Hemp is very well known for doing its research, keeping the knowledge, knowing what our customers are getting. As far as the age limit thing, we do not allow anybody to come into our store and purchase anything without scanning a physical ID, matching that information to the ID and making sure that the person is of age. We are here to help people. We are a hemp shop, but a lot of our people refer to us as their spot to go to help their treatment in their chronic illnesses. Prescriptions no longer work for people. People are on a huge amount of prescription pills that they have to take, and a lot of them are to counteract other prescription pills that aren't even working. I can't stress enough how much knowledge is important on this subject, on getting people the product that's going to help them with their illnesses.
Thank you, Mr. Knowlton. We're about out of time, so I'm going to see if the committee has any questions for Mr. Knowlton. I just have one, Mr. Knowlton. You mentioned that you sell products to treat these people's diseases. Is that correct?
Not necessarily treat, help relieve. That's Mr. Chairman Washit. They have expressed to us that it's helped them tremendously. I'm not a doctor or anything. I don't treat illnesses. I just help people. I help people through a proven formula. The knowledge is out there.
Thank you very much. Further questions for Mr. Knowlton? Seeing none, thank you very much. Appreciate you being here today. All right, with that, I'm going to close public comment, and bring it to the committee. Committee?
Move the bill.
Moved by Representative Rodriguez-Williams, second by Representative Harrelson. Discussion? Representative Chestic.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm still troubled or concerned or confused by this bill. I'm going to vote to advance it. It seems like the problem we're trying to solve here is to keep these products out of the hands of minors. I'm not sure if this bill does that. I'm open to all kinds of suggestions to amend the bill to make it do that. I do not want to do anything that would take these products out of the hands of adults who need them and use them for good effect. I want to protect that access, but I guess what I'm saying is I want to talk with some folks after the meeting about how can we amend this bill to do what it really, the limited purpose I think that it could serve. So I'll vote to advance it to keep the conversation going, not guaranteeing how I'll vote on final reading.
Thank you. Representative Oakley.
I see your hand up.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to, I guess, respond or for discussion to the good representative, the reality is that we're making a policy decision. THC marijuana is not legal in Wyoming. It's actually a Schedule I drug listed, in the federal. And then so in 2018 with the Farm Bill, anyway, this is basically a loophole that has been created as far as making a synthetic substance that can get you high, or as we've heard, some people use it for sort of medicinal purposes. But that's what's interesting to me. The reality is when we hear about the benefits and we hear the benefits and the medical treatment is in reality what we're hearing, that it's being used, but it's completely unregulated. That's not via a mental health professional or a medical professional. Perhaps, doctors shouldn't have a corner on the market, but the reality is that's how we do it. But the director of the Center for the Study of Cannabis said, a doctor said, I'm concerned about this, about the legalization, and that was from the University of California. But she said, we actually know very little about the effects of Delta 8. So what's happened, I believe, in this creation of this loophole is, yes, it's being used for medical and for getting high. And so the policy choices, is that what we want? And I think the answer via this bill is no. So I don't think, from my perspective, that this bill is having the unintended consequence of making it illegal. I think that's the point. So that's for discussion. That's my take on it.
Further comment? Representative Provenza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think if what you are voting for is to then restrict age, I don't think this is in the bill. We did that last session. I don't think you can fit it in the bill. So if that's what you want to do, that's a different discussion. This is an attempt to solve a problem created by the government. We have said that people can't make decisions of what to do with their body in the privacy of their own homes by using substances that hurt virtually no one. And we're going to, instead of come to terms that our war on drugs has failed, we're going to further walk us down the road of trying to regulate a substance that people are going to get. I certainly, I think there are maybe some concerns about the use of this and what are the impacts of it, sure. But I think we know that cannabis and continuing to keep people like veterans away from it is not helping. And the overwhelming majority of the people in Wyoming do not want us to further regulate people from being able to use these products in the way that they choose in the privacy of their own homes. I don't think this is any more dangerous than alcohol, yet we can walk down the street and buy some. So I am a no on this bill.
Seeing no further discussion, no amendments. Debbie, call the roll on Senate File 32.
Representative Chestick? Aye. Representative Crago? Representative Harrelson? Representative Jennings? Representative Nemec?
No.
Representative Oakley?
Aye.
Representative Provenza? Representative Rodriguez-Williams?
Aye.
Chairman Washut?
Aye.
We have a total of 7 ayes and 2 noes.
Thank you. Committee, to have a volunteer to carry this on the floor. Looks like it's,
Yeah, sure.
all right.
Is there anything else on this committee capable of
You want me to?
I'll pass. All right. Thank you all. Appreciate all the testimony this morning. That brings us to Senate File 34. Senate File 34. Committee, you remember this bill from the interim? A joint Judiciary interim bill dealing with sex offender registration. I believe most of the issue came from a witness who testified via Zoom from another state, talking about her circumstances where she was a victim, and the offender who victimized her moved to Wyoming because we had more relaxed registration requirements. That was the genesis, if you will, of this bill. I find this bill to be one of the more complicated bills for us to digest, simply because of the number of references to other statutes. So I did email each of you, and I think Debbie printed out some little cheat sheets that kind of reference some of the many different statute references in the bill. Are there any legislators in the room wishing to testify on Senate File 34? Any agency personnel in the room wishing to testify on Senate File 34?
Good morning. Thank you for being here with us today. If you could state your name, your agency, and we'd love to hear from you.
Good morning, Ms. Chairman, committee. My name is Kelsey Singleton. I am with the Wyoming Attorney General's Office, and I represent the Division of Criminal Investigation.
Good morning. I'm Allison Moore. I'm one of the Deputy Directors of the Division of Criminal Investigation.
I just want a quick refresher on where this bill started. I believe Chairman Washut had referenced the young lady with the offender that had moved to Wyoming. That actually was the promoting obscenity bill. This bill was the one brought forth by DCI to correct some of the issues in the statute with some conflicting language between the definition section and the actual registration section, which is 719-302. So the bill first removes that definition in 719-301, which is criminal offense against a minor. That term is never actually used in the statute, so it's just an unnecessary definition, which I think stemmed the confusion because we were adding sex offenses to that definition, but not then adding them to the registration requirement in 302. Additionally, this bill adds human trafficking and sexual servitude as registerable offenses because currently they are not registerable offenses because of that error. As you'll see on the first page, 62705 is sexual servitude of an adult. It's added as a registerable offense under subsection G, which means that those convicted have to register once a year and can be petitioned to be removed off after 10 years of registration. Then it adds under subsection H, 62706, which is sexual servitude of a minor. It's added as a registerable offense under H, which means that they have to register every 6 months and they can petition the court to be removed after 25 years. It also adds human trafficking, the first and second degree human trafficking, 62702 and 703 to subsection H, or subsection J, excuse me. And these offenders have to register every 3 months and cannot petition to be removed from the registry. The amendment changing the offense of 62316A Romanet 3 moves that offense from a J offense, which means they could not petition, to an H offense. And that amendment was actually brought forth from testimony from Mr. Hansen during the interim. And that changes that offense from registration every 3 months to every 6 months and allows the person to petition after 25 years. And I'm happy to answer any questions the committee has.
Thank you, Ms. Singleton. Any questions for Representative Oakley?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So we just walked through those things quickly, but I just want to, I guess, to discuss or differentiate between the amendments that the Senate just put on now and what we did as the bill and for the interim. So originally you started out with so like adding those 2 sexual servitude statutes, and then you ended with that, like you say, pursuant to testimony, that 6 to 316A2 and 3 were removed. Is that accurate? And that was the Senate amendment?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Oakley, yes. So the amendment changes the classification of that offense from a J to an H. So then that person could petition to be removed from the registry. And yeah, that was the Senate amendment.
Okay.
Follow up?
Thank you. And so it takes off, what the Senate did was removed just 2 offenses and changed the registration requirement just in relation to sexual abuse of a minor in the 3rd degree with 2 subsections. Does that seem consistent to you, I guess, as far as the policy-wise, to pluck these 2 out and put them in a different category? And I think you guys were there for the Senate. So if there's any thought about why we would make that change, I'd appreciate it, or not, or if you have thoughts on that.
Singleton.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Oakley, I'll stay away from the policy side of it, but what I will say is that the Federal Sex Offender Registration Act requires this be at least an H offense for us to be compliant, and it would still be an H, so we would still be compliant. I think there are, Mr. Hansen's testimony was that these victims were older, and so therefore there should be an opportunity to petition to be removed. That specific offense that was amended does have a component where there was a position of authority by the offender, which might be why it was originally a subsection J. Certainly that's within this body's discretion, whether or not they think someone that was in a position of authority and engaged in this intrusion should be removed from the registry upon a petition to the court after 25 years, or whether they should not. I think hopefully that answers your question.
Representative Cragel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Singleton, so during the summer, during the interim, we had put in this language that we essentially put in an age gap requirement, and the Senate took out the age gap on the position of authority. And essentially, that particular statute, which is a Romanet 2, being 20 years of age or older, the actor engages in sexual intrusion with the victim who is either 16 or 17 years of age, and the victim is at least 4 years younger than the actor. And the actor occupies a position of authority in relation to the victim. So I think the discussion during the interim was, if you're 60 and you're having sex with a 16 or 17-year-old, we're not going to move that. And I think that's where we ultimately decided on the 8-year component. Can you tell me why the Senate, or what the discussion, since none of us were there because we're all meeting at the same time, and I apologize, but can you tell me sort of what the discussion was and why we took the 8-year gap out?
Ms. Singleton.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Cragel, Mr. Hansen testified again. It was apparent from his testimony that his victim was further outside the 8 years. And I believe his testimony was that he was a manager at a store and had a consensual relationship with his subordinate. And so his testimony was that the age difference shouldn't matter, given that it was consensual, and the age of the victim.
Further questions? Okay, well, thank you very much. Appreciate you being here. Stay close. We might need you again. Anyone else wishing to testify on Senate File 34? Anyone on Zoom?
Mr. Chairman, we have Jason Hansen.
Bring Ms. Hanson in. Mr. Hanson? Good morning, welcome back. Tell us briefly what you want us to hear today.
Good morning, Chairman Watchett and now House Judicial Representatives. So my name is Jason Hansen. I'd like to first thank the Joint Judicial Committee members as a whole for all their hard work, patience, and understanding on this Senate file. It's a very difficult subject for everyone to be discussing, and yet to see the unconstitutional treatment of these offenders and do something to fix that injustice deserves recognition. So thank you. It's easy to show your support for someone when they're well liked and respected, but showing your support for those that aren't as popular is much more difficult. As representatives of the people, you have a chance to do that today by treating all people equally and speaking up for those who cannot speak for themselves and ensuring justice for those being crushed. I want to thank the Senate Judicial Committee for their hard work in working to get the bill to the House in its current form, which in the case of Statute 6-2 316A it moves the statute as a whole into Wyoming's medium tier for registration purposes. So that the Senate amendment does not pluck two offenses out as it was just stated. It only removes the age cap that you all placed on as the Joint Judicial Committee on the one offense. It still leaves the other offense she spoke about in the J tier. It only moves statute 6-2 III from having to report 4 times a year for life into the medium H category, where they're able to be monitored 2 times a year and ask for relief from duty after 25 years. So this bill would, as written, classify one of Wyoming's lowest severity offenses more in line with Wyoming's registry stated purpose, being not to punish, but for the protection of children and to facilitate law enforcement, as it would now be classified by the severity of its offense. So this was a 3rd degree low level offense. It has 16 to 17-year-old victims. But had any of these offenders, no matter what age they are, chosen younger victims or chosen their own children as victims, they would have been charged with 1st or 2nd degree offenses that are only monitored 2 times a year for 25 years. Had they touched their own child aged 13 through 18, they would have been charged with a higher offense. They would have been monitored 2 times a year for 25 years. And that doesn't matter that could be the 60-year-old offender you're worried about. So the age difference between offender and victim wasn't used to determine any severity for any of Wyoming's offenses. And that can be seen when looking at the chart I provided in the memo for today's meeting. And it shows that there are 5 offenses in that first chart with younger victims or worse conduct. And the whole range of offenders are classified, and it's based on their conduct and age of victim. And this particular 6-2 316A to be considered a tier 3 status federally or in Wyoming, based on how they've treated every other statute, would need to be either violent without consent or have a victim under 13, which this crime is clearly none of those things. So it would also, this bill would also make Wyoming treat this particular offense more in line with SORNA's classification, putting it as a tier 2 offense, as they stated in their 2019 when they looked at Wyoming's offenses. And they said that's where that offense would be registered if it were a federal offense. This bill would also bring this crime's reporting habits more in line with how your neighboring states treat this offense, as they either require yearly registration for 10 to 15 years, or it isn't a crime in those states, as in Nebraska and Montana, whose age of consent is 16. South Dakota, the age of consent was 16 until 2021, when they made a comparable offense. Colorado treats this as a class 4 felony. It's a 10-year registration period. Idaho it's a risk assessment, but 10 years on the registration. This bill would also stop your reporting agents from being paid to over-monitor these low-level offenders and make it so that they don't someday overwhelm the registry with low-level offenders reporting 4 times a year for life. And lastly, it would stop making these low-level offenders register twice as often as the much more severe offenses, as you can see in that table I provided. None of these offenders are denying the seriousness of their offenses, nor the need to register for a time. We're only asking for a chance to ask a judge for relief from duty to register someday, to be treated equally and humane by Wyoming's laws, to be free from absolute arbitrary power and cruel and unusual punishment, as are their rights given by our United States and Wyoming constitutions, rights you swore to uphold for these citizens when you came to office. It is one thing to have your already public criminal record made more accessible and to periodically update your address with the record keepers. It's entirely another to be placed under a probationary surveillance system in perpetuity with no chance for review. This lifetime inclusion of low severity offenses currently renders your registry over-inclusive and dilutes its utility by creating an ever-growing list of registrants that is less likely to be effective at protecting children or meeting the needs of law enforcement. These low-level offenders deserve your compassion, mercy, and grace. They deserve to be classified based on the severity of their offense, and they deserve to have a chance to plead their case to a judge no matter their age. These things they would be able to do if the House passes this bill as is with the Senate amendment. I again thank you for all your hard work. I ask this committee to pass Senate File 34 as is. And as for my situation, I was a 26-year-old store manager. I had a consensual relationship with a 17-year-old employee of mine. Our relationship is 8 years, 3 months apart. So as I read it, that wouldn't allow me to ever ask for relief from duty. I still have to report 4 times a year, which is anytime I go and report, I'm seeing gentlemen in there that are in their 50s that had raped children under 13, that had sex with their own children under 18, in between 13 and 18. And I'm having to report twice as often as them. This is something that, if it doesn't get passed as written, would have been challenged and will be challenged in court judicially as well, as it was ruled unconstitutional to require low-level offenders to register for life without a chance for judicial review in Powell versus Keel 2021. As with that, I ask for you to pass the bill as amended, and I stand for any questions that the committee may have regarding statute 62316 III, or how it pertains to any of the other worse statutes. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Hanson? Seeing none, thank you. Appreciate your testimony this morning, Mr. Hanson. Anyone else on Zoom waiting to testify? Anybody else in the room? No further public testimony. I'm going to close public testimony. Committee, what's your pleasure? Move the bill by Haroldson, second by Oakley. Discussion, Representative Haroldson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just getting my head wrapped around this. So if in this situation, reading this, you could, in essence, this individual, if they were to be 25, which would be the minimum year line, they could feasibly get off the registry at 50, if I'm doing my math correct. 50 to 60 would be kind of that window, or 55. Anyways, am I correct in that math?
I believe so. Representative Oakley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And yes, I for the 25 year, the subsection, that's an H, the subsection H. I just would like, I'm going to make an amendment and discuss it. Is that?
Please.
So I'm going to move to strike out what the Senate's amendment as it relates to, so page 4, line 20, where they struck out 62316 A2 and A3. So so they struck out the language. I move to keep that language in. And so what that is, the
Well,
three.
let's get a second first.
Okay, sorry.
So second by Craigo. Now you can describe it.
Thank you. So the 316 A2 and 3 are, again, so sex abuse of minor in the third degree. A2, there is something, so we've done a lot of discussion about these offenses. And I just want to say the original intent of this coming in front of us was to, add some of these that weren't included, like sexual servitude of a minor. And then I feel like a little bit we got pulled, and that's okay for us to have the discussion. But if you look at this, in my opinion, the policy was set with these classifications when these statutes were written, and that's not what we're doing. We're not reclassifying these, or these were put in here and classified together for a reason. And so I would just like to say A2 is significant because what that is, so that's your position of authority statute. So that's what we see, and it's used quite often because that's your teacher. That's your, somehow there was a young person and they were able to be controlled or manipulated by the person or something. And there's a reason that so policy-wise, that was set, right? The position of authority. And I don't think that we need to be changing that and somehow classifying it different. I'm always fine. We listen to somebody testify. That's great. But I don't think we just change the policy of all of the statutes and the policy of the state of Wyoming because of that. I haven't heard any reason that we would do that. They are justifiable. The policy has been set when these statutes were reviewed. So I don't see why we would do that. Again, the position of authority is significant. And we tried to address it with the 8 years. The Senate took that out. I think we just stop that, stick with the original intent of the bill and clean this up with that language and don't start messing around with plucking one of these out and putting it in a different category. It doesn't make any sense to me. So that's my motion, is for us to go back, leave those where they are, and don't try to change the statute.
Further discussion. Representative Craigo.
I guess just clarification, Mr. Chairman, for the bringer of the amendment, are you saying not going back to the original version of the bill, or just going back to the statute as it exists today? What exactly is your amendment?
Representative Oakley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the amendment is just to leave those in J as they are. So it is keeping status quo as far as the statute. Current law. This is where we are. And so I guess I appreciate us listening and trying to be helpful, but in the end, I don't think there's any logic to just taking out one of these statute and putting it in a different place, which is in effect what we would do if we went with the Senate amendment, which strikes these out from being a J offense. And then that reverts the entire point of the bill back to what we were doing, which was adding some of these in the appropriate category because they're currently not in at all. Does that answer it clear as mud?
Further discussion, questions? Question on the amendment. Do you have the amendment, Debbie, that we're going to, on page 4, line 20, remove the strikeout on the language that the Senate struck? We clear there? So we're going to put 62316A, 2, and 3 back in. Representative Craigle.
Just to be clear, Mr. Chairman, the Senate did not strike that. That was part of the original bill draft that came out of committee. What the Senate struck from the bill was the age gap, the 8-year language. So that's, which doesn't show up on the engrossed version. You have to look it up online. And so that was my question to Representative Oakley, was regarding what exactly are we doing here? If we're just putting back in that language, which is in current statute, that's fine if that's the motion. But when we came out of committee after interim, we had put an age differential in there. And so there was actually language that was struck on page 3 as well that said, so if you go to page 3, there's some language there, WS on lines 5 and 6, WS 62316A Romanet 2. And the original bill had the 8-year gap there. So but the opposite of what would have been on page 4. And so if we're going to do what Representative Oakley wants to do, then we also have to strike WS 62316A little 2 on page 3. That has to be part of the amendment.
Representative Oakley, you see that as a friendly?
Absolutely, thank you.
All right, so once you state it all together one more time, make sure that Debbie has got exactly what we're doing and that the committee is clear.
And as far as the amendment for the writing, it's simply how do you say strike out the strikeout? Delete the deletion? What's that? Okay, reinsert the stricken language 62316A2 and 3 on line 20, page 4, as well as, did you say page 3? As well as page 3, line 6. And more.
Representative Craigle, want to help?
And I think we also
Need your mic.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I think we also need to remove the language following the strikeout because that's covering that. So we're referring to Romanet 3 twice in that line.
All right, let's pause for just 1 minute, get the amendment spelled out so it's easily
I think we've said it repeatedly. What he's pointing out is that on line 20, page 4, it basically says it twice. It said, so it was incorrect. It says 62316A2 and 3, followed by 62316A3. So it says it twice. So that needs to be included.
So we're going to take out the 62316A Romanet 3 that follows that language and then reinsert the stricken. Okay. Representative Earl.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm not saying I disagree. I'm just going to we're going to play devil's advocate for 1 second. One of the struggles that I understand what we're up against, but the consensual aspect is one of the things that I do struggle with a little bit because I've had to deal with a couple of these situations where I don't agree with the statement at all. I don't agree with the action at all, but there was in that situation a consensual relationship. I'm currently dealing with this on a couple of situations in my county, and as we continue to branch down these areas where these individuals can live, and these individuals in small communities were having issues. Just because they can't live in our communities, because our gaps are so big on where they can be. And I'm giving just a devil's advocate here that in a place like we currently are sitting, that's not an issue. But when you start getting into a town that the entire town, you put a school on one side and you put another learning facility for children on the other side, and all of a sudden they can't live in that community anymore. And I'm just throwing out the idea. I don't want it to be a deal where we eliminate people who are trying to get better from being able to be parts of our communities. So let's have that conversation. And the fact that at 25 years, these people are 50 or 54, if it was a consensual relationship, I would hope they've learned a lesson by then.
Representative Crago.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, it's not consensual. The victim is under 18. I mean, that's the whole point of the statute. It's not consensual, so we can quit calling it that. I mean, we're doing all sorts of bills this particular session saying people that are under 18 can't consent to any number of things. So it's not consensual. That being said, I think there's a discussion that we need to have moving forward. There are some inconsistencies in these statutes, lots of them. And I think Mr. Hansen brings up a good point. My question is, do we just start tearing apart the statutes without a wholesale investigation into or discussion? I think we need to spend more time on the entire sexual, the sexual registration stuff, because we're just trying to fix one little problem for one person. I don't think that's a good way to legislate. I would prefer we put the language back in with this amendment and start working on the problem to address Mr. Hansen's point, because I think he has some good points, but I don't think doing it this way is the right way to do it.
Representative Oakley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I agree with Representative Crago. And I was thinking to your point, that also goes to his point, but that's, having a little bit of deja vu. That's how we got here, because we started having the 8 years discussion, because we were trying to address it and maybe make things better. But then when you revisit it like we have here today, then you start realizing just doing this like little things in piecemeal and it isn't effective. It doesn't work. And then we don't have, cohesive statutes. So if we want to look at registration as well as these offenses, I think we have to do that comprehensively, because I think this was an example of us getting, off track and mired and losing sight and not doing something cohesive. So if that's something we want to take up, then we need to do that. But I don't think it's appropriately done here.
Representative Haraldson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I don't disagree at all. I think that's a great option. I just think when we do have this deep dive, we got to look at distance a little bit, simply for our small communities. Because I sit here and it's amazing. I spend way too much time on an online app drawing lines to see how close we are and saying, well, that rental's out. Well, that rental's out. And then all of a sudden we get ourselves to a place where we got someone trying to make their life better and we can't help them. And I think we need to, as we do a deep dive, I think that's an area too that we have to address. So definitely agree with you guys on the concept of let's address all of it at one time and do it right and do it well and do it fair and help people like Mr. Hansen and the other people, but at the same time, not destroy our statutes in the process.
All right, Debbie, you want to read back the amendment? Make sure you've got it to the satisfaction of the bringer.
So on page 4, reinsert what was strike out, and then strike out the 6-2-316A, Romanet 3.
And was there something further on page 3, Representative Crago?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So that would require on page 3, line 6, striking out 62316A2.
Mr. Chairman, is that 63316A2I comma the inserted language?
Say that again?
Yes, takes the comma with it.
Good catch. Sorry.
Everybody clear on the amendment? No further motion, discussions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. All right, that amendment carries. Conference committee, here we come. Any further amendments? Any discussion? Call the roll on Senate File 34.
Representative Chestick,
Aye.
Representative Krago, Representative Harrelson, Representative Jennings, Representative Nemec, Representative Oakley, Representative Provenza, Representative Rodriguez-Williams,
Aye.
and Chairman Washit.
Aye.
We have a total of 7 ayes and 2 noes.
Thank you, committee. Anyone want to volunteer to carry this on the floor? Representative Crago. All right, we stand adjourned until Friday morning.